Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. In this episode, we will cover three subjects. Two of them, the first two will be slightly, we touch just on them, but we'll speak in depth on the third. The first is the inauguration and celebration of Manawi, who is appointed and is sworn in as regional governor of Darfur. The second subject is about the ICC, International Criminal Court, Prosecutor General, who is now in Sudan, and he spoke about the ICC and the delivering of those wanted to the court. The third, which will speak in depth on it, is the growing relation with America, its effect on the stability of the country, the peace of the country, and the economy of the country. I'm glad to host in this episode two our distinguished gentlemen. One of them is Professor Bakri Jack. Bakri Jack is a professor in University of New York, Brooklyn. Is public relations, international public relations, and also we'll have Professor Bakri is visiting Sudan actually, and we'll be back very soon. That's why we'll try to get him as much as we can, so that we can take as much as we can from his knowledge in this area, which is very important. Our second guest is Dr. Yasser Abed, doctor in economy. He's an economist, and he works in different organizations in Africa, in different countries in Africa. Welcome, dear gentlemen, both of you, for being with me in this episode. We'll start with Dr. Yasser Abed. Dr. Yasser Abed, about the first item of our episode, about the inauguration of the official inauguration of Arkomani Manawi as governor of Darfur region. Darfur, why this singled out as the only region which is now recognized and realized? The other regions not yet known, are not realized, are not yet even spoke about it, because they are waiting for a conference in the regional governors. So can you tell us about this event of last week?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Faraz, and my regards to my colleague, Professor Bakri. I'm happy to be with him. Regarding the migration of Commander Manir Kumannawi, I think so it has so many significations, and the first significance of that is a part of it because of the history of the region of Darfur. It was in the international media, it was a conflict. The first of all is a conflict area, conflict region. But now things has become different after the revolution and after the Juba agreement has been signed. I think so now we are going to the implementation of the agreement, and the part of the implementation to appoint governor there in Darfur, and that is in fact it had so significant also message to the whole of the world now. Darfur is being transformed from the conflict to the peace now. And that means now Darfur there is some stabilization in Darfur. There is the stability, at least peace stability and the security stability part of it. Still, there is so small problem and so small pockets on conflict between the tribes and whatever. But it's still we can say that Darfur now is very peaceful now at this time, and because of the reflection of the problems in the neighboring countries, which is Juba in southern Sudan, in Libya, in Chad, in Central Africa, and those all been affected by this war. Now most of them are happy now because now Darfur is going to be safe and going to be more stable at this time and coming days. And now we are going to jump to the development. We're going to jump to the investment. We're going to jump to that. Chosen part of of the movements as on Mr. Maniak Kuminawi as governor of the region. It has also another signification, because he is part of one of the leaders of the arms groups, one of the leaders of that means we are going to close that chapter completely between the whole movements and the government after the agreement. And we're expecting now we have so many heavy challenges and many threats in that region because of the arms, illegal arms and illegal immigration and illegal trade problems there. It's going to solve most of the problem because of that appointment. And another part of it is in the camps, which is refugees camps and displaced people there. That is another challenge, internally challenge, and the external threat which is there. It has also to be saved that of the arms, because the arms, illegal arms, one of the biggest problems in the four regions. It's one of the affected the regions, affected the problems, affected the community so much between the tribe. Even most of the conflict between the tribe, it is through that illegal arms and illegal cars and whatever. So that's an internal challenge. But now, in fact, he's speaking about Mr. Manit speaking about the infrastructures in the region and the camps problem and the camps refugees camps, and it's speaking about the infrastructure, about the roads, about the water. In fact, one of the biggest problems in Darfur now to connect the water everywhere, and that's another challenge for the people whom we're going to avoid many conflict on that, because the main conflict of the tribes between them and the ethnic problems and the tribe problems, it is regarding the water because of the of the movement of the historical problem between the land and
nomads
the water.
farmers. Okay, that is good. So you think that the task work on Malawi among these challenges that he mentioned is a little bit difficult. As you know, Darfur it has wide borders with four countries, unstable countries actually, especially after the assassination of Idris Deby. So the region of Darfur is now vulnerable to any change, any upheaval, any movement of displaced people. They will just go to Darfur and they will complicate things. Do you think the task is full of challenges?
Well, first off, I would like to extend my sense of gratitude to being hosted again here. I'm also grateful to be among two of you, Professor Yasser Abeid and Engineer Omar. I'm glad that I'm here. To answer your question, I think it's a daunting challenge. I think in our country we have signed so many peace agreements. I can go back and start from Juba, 1947, 1955, 1964, 1973. So the challenge is not just about signing an agreement or implementing it. It's can we build a lasting peace? And I think that is not an issue that is supposed to be dealt by Mani Al-Komenawi himself or his government. This is going to be a long-standing process. Building peace is not an event. It requires people going back to their villages, having to find a new life. Don't forget, we have almost a generation now spend about their entire life in camps. They study in universities. So to imagine people going back and building a new life is not going to be easy. I'm hopeful. I think Sudan is starting a new phase, and I think this peace process is the beginning of long-lasting ways for Sudanese people to find a way to live together. With that sense, I think I cannot really downplay how challenging it's going to be. Economic development, people going back, building villages, building lives, even reconciliation among these tribes. You know, at least 600,000 people died.
Yeah.
And that blood is still around. So issues about justice, transitional justice, even ideas of making peace among tribes, ethnic groups, these are all issues needs to be resolved in the future. But at least you have to start somewhere. So I'm going to think about having one governor for those 5 states in Darfur is the beginning of that process. Again, the proof is in the pudding. we have to wait 3, 4, 5 years to see if this is going to be a lasting peace or this is just one of those agreements signed and implemented and not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So, but I'm hopeful.
Hopeful. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Yasser. And the second item, the second issue of our episode, the visit now, the current visit of the ICC International Criminal Court prosecutor, who is now in Sudan. He is negotiating the handing over of President Bashir and those who are wanted with him, the other four, to the ICC, especially after the decision of the Council of Ministers to agree to sign the protocol of the Roma, this ICC accord. What do you think this visit, the importance of the visit, and the outcome? Now it is at the end. Yesterday he concluded his visit to Sudan. But what is your feeling about it? Will it add, will it lead immediately in the very near future to the handing over of those who are summoned subpoenaed actually by the ICC, the warrant of arrest?
I think that the visit is very important at this time. Also, it is paved the way to the relation between Sudan and ICC. That is very important. Also, it was been very absent for a long time. Between Sudan has been away after his visit to Sudan last year, and now this is the second visit from the prosecutor of ICC. It seems like there is just a very strong relation between the two sides, and that is also good of just maybe for in the understanding and how to discuss regarding the issue of to hand over the hosted President Bashir and the rest of the criminal. This is also going to put the things in the ICC, because before it was just only taking the reports by papers only, but now it's going to stand on the ground, and he stand on the ground to see all the people and to discuss with the officials and whatever. And after the main issue now and the new issue on that, Sudan is joined now Rome Agreement and is being part of the ICC court ICC agreement. That is also another issue. Because that came through the cabinet ministers, and the things now still not yet been completely
not yet clear.
Yes, not been clear.
Okay, but let me ask the Professor Bakri, because from what you stopped, from what Dr. Yasser Al-Abeid stopped, people now they started some of the resistance or the old regime proponents and diehards, they are starting putting some warning and threatening. But the decision of the Council of Ministers to sign the protocol, Roma Protocol, is yet to be endorsed and signed by the joint meeting between the Council of Ministers and the Sovereignty Council, which is, it is almost half of it is a military, to whom President al-Bashir is a colleague, let us say, or it's like a trade union. So do you think it will easily be passed and endorsed, this decision? It's not yet implemented, cannot be implemented without the final approval of the joint meeting between the Sovereignty Council and the Council of Ministers. Although the Council of Ministers unanimously adopted the proposal to sign the protocol. Will it be difficult?
I think it's going to be a dicey situation. In terms of if the issue is the number of between ministers and Supreme Council, that is 11, right? So if you add all the ministers, civilians, plus the civilian in the Supreme Council, I think they have the mechanical majority to pass it. If that's an issue, I don't see the reason why they can't pass it.
But are all the civilians? Yes, the majority is the civilians. But are they all to?
I think we ought to assume these are people who managed to be in those places because of the revolution, right? So they were not randomly selected. It's people in the street that put them on those places. So I assume if this is one of the demands of the revolution, they have to listen to what people are asking. it could pass. Even if it passed, even if it passes, my biggest concern would be, is it going to be implemented?
Yes.
So the idea of actually joining the ICC and paving the road for Sudan to be accountable like other countries is just one step. Handing over Bashir and his colleagues and all the accused of genocide in Darfur is going to be another issue. It's going to be a political process. I can imagine there will be a lot of back and forth, and I can imagine also there will be a lot of calculation from both ends. I think the rational question to ask is, do we have any legal system in Sudan that's qualified at this point to try Bashir and anyone else? Do we have laws? And because of that, I think the issue is going to be around for a while. And I also know one of the demands of the revolution, of December revolution, is transitional justice. And as long as we can't bring justice to those people who are living in camps, marginalized, displaced, those people who died, it's always going to be a question. What is the point of actually change if you can even try someone in any court? So I think this is going to be a political issue. It's going to take a while, and I think at some point it will resolve itself in political arena. But I'm hopeful that at least for Sudan to take that step to join the ICC, it could be a deterrent for any future actions. So I think it's a good step. I think it's healthy, and I think it's a good political calculation from the prime minister to do so.
Okay, that is good. Yes, I think it's an issue. Although I agree with you that the majority, if we go to majority, I forgot to say that in the Sovereign Council, those who joined after the peace agreement in Juba, they are all for handing over, because it was all about Darfur region. They suffered a lot from this. So the majority, the mechanical majority, but maybe the implementation.
Most likely it's going to be stalled somewhere after it passed.
After it passed. Okay. Now let us go to our final, the second, the third issue, which is very important to Sudan and to the people of Sudan actually, about the developing good relations with America. Historical. We start again with Professor Bakri Jack, because you have been in America and you have. Can you just give a history of the relation, the development of the relation between America and Sudan after independence, bearing in mind that America is the first country in the globe to recognize the independence of Sudan few hours after its declaration on the 1st of January 1956. America since that time had and still have interest on Sudan. Can you tell us about these developments since independence?
Briefly, I'm going to just try to put it in a context. So imagine 1945, by the end of the Second World War, United States became one of the major world powers. And also one of the facts of 1945 is that we inherited a divided world between two camps. You have the East, you have the West. The West camp is pro-democracy, pro-market, and you got the Eastern camp, which is, we know, socialism, communism, and what is it called, the central democracy. So the United States realized by the end of 1940s, and with the shaping of the world the way we live in today, the IMF, the World Bank, all of these institutions came as a result of the ruins of the Second World War. So I can imagine why the United States would be the first country to accept Sudan as an independent nation. I think one is making sure that Sudan would not be part of any political process of joining the East camp. So that's a political calculation during the Cold War. Second, I think the United States as a country has always been pro-independence. The United States, has a deep history of fighting for independence, and it makes sense for a new nation to join or actually support other countries to realize their independence. So it makes sense, even though in international relations usually the issue is interest, not just a matter of stance or friendship. Fast forward, if you look at Sudan and U.S. relationship in the 60s, it was smooth, and after the 1958 coup and with Aboud, the relationship was developed really well, and Sudan started to receive some aid from the United States, like international aid development, and we have a street in Khartoum, Bahrain, now known as Ma'un, as this is built by some aid from the United States. You could say at that point, the United States was courting Sudan to remain either in the non-aligning countries or join the Western camp. This is a Cold War era. By 1969, things went south, and you can imagine with the coup of Nimeria and left-leaning and trying to, with all the revolutionary communist slogans, that affected Sudan. And as you can remember, in early 1970s, a lot of Sudanese businessmen left the country because after the nationalization of a lot of businesses. That wasn't a good sign for the US at that point because they started to think Sudan is moving east, and that is might actually change the formula of the how the United States chose to play the Cold War at the time. After the 1973 and the failure of the coup, and Nimeria and with Dr. Mansour helped, they moved to the West, they moved Sudan, and they actually had a good relationship with the West. And that was the time when Sudan received a lot of help from the IMF, World Bank, with the assistance of the United States. I have to quickly tell you, by 1985, Sudan and the United States enjoyed good relationships, but in the streets, a lot of people in Sudan viewed the United States as supporting a dictator. And as you can remember, when people were in the streets in March and April 1985, Nimeria was visiting Washington at the time. So if you remember, I was really young, but I remember, people in the street, calling some of the slogans about the IMF, about the US. And I think that has a lot to do with the causal relationship between Nimeria and the United States at the time. Quickly, if we get into 1989, by that time, I think the United States realized the Islamists are going to be the next headache after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1989. The Cold War is over, and it became very clear the United States emerged as the only dominant power. But the Islamists started to become the headache, and with the coup in 1989, things really quickly ended up going to a very different direction. By 1994, Bin Laden came to Sudan, and Sudan became the host country for a lot of fringes of terrorist groups. And as you can imagine, that put Sudan in the state-sponsored terrorism list. And from there, we have the 1998 attack on the that factory in Bahri. And in 1998, the United States decided to support the Sudanese opposition militarily to actually fight the Islamist government. This is during the time of the NDA in Eritrea, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Kenya. So during those 30 years, the relationship between Sudan and the United States deteriorated to the extent that Sudan has been isolated. No technology, no spare parts, nothing. There is almost, because of those bad relationship between Sudan and the United States, Sudan ended up being completely isolated from the international world. Our banks were not recognized. We can't do money. We can't do any business. Yeah. So basically, now we are in a very different phase. The United States has been very supportive of the Sudanese change, the evolution, and the new era that Sudan is experiencing. And actually, there is a law passed in Congress last year. It's called the Supporting Democratic Transition in Sudan. So these are all good signs, and I think the relationship are completely normalized now between Sudan and the United States. And I think soon we will see a lot of exchange between cultural exchange, educational programs will come back. Fulbright, Sudanese students can actually go and study in the United States. So these are all good signs, and I think the United States is putting a lot of its eggs in the basket of helping Sudan and aiding it to get out of this situation. So
that is very good. Okay, Dr. Yasser Ahmed, yes, we had this good history, this narration by Professor Bakri Jack about the relation of American-Sudanese relation till it came to the normal, yes. And America became very supportive to Sudan, especially in the international financial system, IMF and World Bank. As an economist, Dr. Yasser Ahmed, can you tell us about the benefits to the people of Sudan of this open and good normal relation with America from the economic point of view?
I think from the history of that, what Mr. Prof mentioned, I think so there is a very good relation from starting the relation since 1947, 5 until 52, after the colonization of the British and the problem between Egypt and British, and America came to interfere just to isolate Sudan from from the camp of British camp, and that after that came, we have seen many envoys came to Sudan, and many delegations came 1952, 1950, 55. Many delegations came from even from Egypt and from USA and from Minister of Foreign Affairs, and they have to start to visit Sudan to see what's the problem of Sudan. They start to support Sudan by American aid. This starts since 1952. I think so that what after the independence, starting give Sudan many aid, and we have seen that Sudan has a big problem at that time after 1952, the big recession in the economy of Sudan, the collapse of the cotton at that time because Manchester it didn't take from Sudan, and even the dumping of the many cotton came from side of America, just to affect the economy of Europe at that time. That play of the international. I think so. The relation is being collapsed since 1989. We have seen now in the TV. During the Mary, the relation was very good, and after 1985, after the regime of Benghazi came, things has been collapsed completely. The relation. After the revolution, things now is being changed completely. I have seen the improvement of the relation between Sudan and with the IMF, and we have seen last week the manager for the American
International
agency,
Development Agency.
she came to Sudan, and in fact he's promised Sudan to give them some commodities and some aid, directly aid. And we have seen the relation has been improved so much after the bridge loan is being paid by America, and to pay that for IMF, the debit areas on that time, and they paid more than $1 billion US dollar, 1.2 billion US dollar to Sudan, at least to activate the account of Sudan in the international bank, and that one it really gives Sudan a step to go to the international community, international financial institution, and even I think so. France also paid the rest of the 3 billion of Sudan, and now the account of Sudan in IMF in the international bank now is being activated now at this time, and now Sudan is ready to receive a lot of international finance from American, and even it's been now open. We have opened now an account of central bank to the Federal American Bank. Also, that's another part and very important issue to Sudan. Now Sudan is open now to the world now. Before it was out of the ground of the international financial institution. I think so. America is the one who imposed the sanction and the one who removed the sanction, and now things is being open to Sudan for the next. We're expecting a lot of investment, maybe from on infrastructure in oil, from America, maybe also in agriculture. That is because we have been behind so much about the technology of the agriculture, about the irrigation and the rest of the technology. We're expecting that maybe very soon, if it comes, it will be. And investment, it needs stability, as we know that America needs stability in Sudan. It needs Sudan stable at this time, because as we know, the whole region been affected by conflict now. But especially Sudan is very important and very significant for our USA, for the United States of America, because the rest of the region we have seen them in conflict, and Sudan, if it is starting again, conflict is going to affect most of the neighboring countries. This is why America needs stable Sudan. It needs a peace Sudan, Sudan without any conflict, without any problems, so that at least to go to the investment, to go to another investment in the region.
Okay, that is that's good, but Professor Bakri Jack, from what you heard from, all we heard from Dr. Yasser Abed, yes, okay. America and the private sector, America the capitalist country is governed by the private sector, the multinational companies, the big companies. Those companies, they can do a lot. IDA, the International Development Agency, is the government is a part of the government. But what will be the role of the private sector? The private sector, they have their own prerequisites to join or to put their foot in any part of the world. They have prerequisites other than the economic or like, for example, peace. Because Samantha Power, when she came here, she mentioned in her press conference, she commended the development and the big changes. She was very happy and genuine about this way, but she said, as if she is saying that we are not doing enough in the area of security. Especially, she spoke explicitly on the unification of the one national army. Will this be a hurdle? As far as I know, it's not an easy job to have very soon a united one army, especially the rapid support forces. The troops of the factions, they are looking that they are eager and they are pushing for integration in the army. But the rapid support forces are a little bit playing foot dragging tactics. They are not yet convinced with the idea of completely being dissolved in the army. Will this be an impediment to the American physical actual support to the country in the economic side?
Let me start where Professor Yasser has finished. I think if we are hoping for any change that will affect people's life in Sudan, we have to start by saying, do we have a stable country?
Yes.
I think without political stability, without security, without actually people being able to live their lives and go out and buy things and trade, you can't really talk about future business. So from that perspective, there are lots of other requirements. When people come to invest in a country, they just don't come because they like you. They come because there are three specific factors. One, are there any markets? Can they maximize their capital? Can they get their money back faster without high risks? If you think about this question, and you can sum all of this in one sentence, the rate of return on the investment, that is a major reason why anybody will invest. Think about it this way. Let's assume that Sudan is stable and clean and roads are fine and we have good banking system, even though we still need to do a lot in our banking. Our banking system seems to be from the last century. If you walk in any bank today, I actually feel like, are they really living in the 21st century? You don't see banks using papers like in the way banks in Sudan, and they count money. It's really relic. I walk in a bank and I always feel like, is this from a movie in 1950s or is this real? So you cannot imagine someone to come and invest in this kind of environment. But let's assume all of this fine. Let's say we have good banking system. Let's say that we are integrated in the international banking system. Let's say we have a stable political system. Let's say all that's fine. We still have to compete with other countries. What is the comparative advantage that we have for any, let's assume any business wanted to choose between going to Sudan or Nicaragua or Rwanda. Why would they choose Sudan? So that would become even another issue. To that end, I can actually get your question. Sudan cannot afford to have multiple militias in the streets. Whether today, in a year or 5, we have to have one unified military, that's a national army, and that must have a conviction, a different conviction, that is not to rule, but to actually abide by the Constitution. And its job is to protect the nation, protect the borders, and actually hold the sovereignty of the nation as a sacred value. That is what is needed. So all of this maneuvering about the rapid support forces, thinking that they could be like Hezbollah in Lebanon, I see it as a political game, maybe for negotiation, maybe for bargaining, maybe for getting a little bit of political clout, but in reality, there is a law, and the law in the passed by Congress, and it specifically says Sudan must have a unified army. That's one of the USA doesn't work from their own book. They have to follow what Congress is telling them. So they cannot come to Sudan and actually invent something new. They are not really having their own agenda. This is an agenda of Congress saying this is what we want you to go as a US aid organ to these countries and do what we think is good in these places. So the US aid is having a lot of money for election. They have a lot of money for security. This is all money is going to be coming in sort of donors with civil society and government too. So in order for Sudan to reap the benefit of being in the debt relief and the HEBIC initiative, all of these issues must be resolved. We must have a unified one army, And the question is very simple. For how long could you imagine to have an independent militia living outside any of these groups? This question is not only for the RSF, it's also for some other like military groups.
Yeah.
You can't keep having your own army in a country. That is not by any definition any part of the modern state. So I think there will be some fight back and forth and maybe an impediment for a while. But I think by the end of the day, Sudan is going to come to a conclusion that one army and it's going to be reflective of all Sudanese people. And I think that is a matter of fact.
Okay, that's good. That's we all wish, we hope that this happens. But without this, Dr. Yasser Abeid, as you know, you said something positive about the American relation and its role on lifting or delivering Sudan's economy from its ailing state or this deterioration, because Sudan is full of resources, as we know, but resources alone cannot be a solution without peace, without coherence, without infrastructure, without. Yes, can you tell us about this heritage, such heritage for the coming investor? Investor, as Professor Yasser said, is not coming for Sudanese. It's not a benevolent society or philanthropists, or they want to make money.
It's true.
At the same time, they want to help you. What are the areas, do you think, as economists, what are the areas which are ready? Let us assume that now security, we have one army, we have everything.
I think
Let
so.
us assume, what are the areas as an economist, what are the immediate or areas which can give, people can reap its benefits very soon, in 2 or 3 years?
Investment, money, trade, it needs stabilization. It needs peace. It needs security. It needs institutions. Otherwise, the world is very open, very, very big. As Mr. Professor mentioned, Nicaragua is there, Rwanda is there, Kenya is there, Malaysia is there. So we need to compete with others. We have to know that we are in a different world now after globalization. We have to compete really. We have to know that we have to build our institution from A to Z. Financial institution, it has to be built from central bank, Minister of Finance should have strong policies, even the central bank, even the rest of the institutions should be there with laws, with whatever, how to attract the investment, how to attract the international finance, how to attract the international institutions, how to build that one. You know, the stability, the security stability and peace stability, it is very important for investment. That one, it can take us to the economic stability. It is very important, as you mentioned, that the resources, it's not only enough for how to develop
But what are the ready projects? Let us say
what are the projects?
like,
You know,
like Jazeera project,
you know,
like Jazeera, for
we
example.
can't talk about the Giza project. Instead of first of all, we have to talk about the policies of to attract that. Jazeera scheme, when we are talking about it, we have talking about 2 or 3 decades before. If you want to speak about the Jazeera scheme at this time, you have to do a lot of revolution on that projects. The project, which is starting from 19 something more than now 100 years, and now it's completely different, because if you talk about talk about the crops, talk about the agriculture, about the soil, about the irrigation, about that is completely different. You know what we are doing now in the Jazeera scheme now. The irrigation come through the Abu Shireen channels and whatever. That one completely is as something, it is it's finished now. The irrigation now, irrigation itself now is being has so much technology. The researches itself now, we need a lot of revolution in the researches on that agriculture, in soil, in crops, in whatever. And if you want to join international trade organization, you have to have the specification, you have to have that one. You have to go for strong policies, you have to go for studied projects. Jazeera scheme, I think so. If we need to bring it to the last 1950 something or 1940 something, that's something I don't think is going to develop the country.
Okay, let us
We have to look. We have now block on oil. I think so. Oil, one of the readies
Oil, what's
projects.
oil?
Oil,
Edible oil?
oil. If you talk about the blocks now in the north, in the west, in the east, there is so many blocks there. It is ready. It is studied. It's ready. We have in gas also there is some study there. Feasibility studies also is ready. If you start with that one, it will be. I think so. It will be better. And we have on minerals also some blocks which is ready, like Ariab has many big projects, which is cost, it's not that 200 millions, or it's called VMS, Volcanic Massive Sulfide, and another project is called CIL, that's carbon leach. Those two projects, I think so, the potential of that project for Ariab itself, it is, and Ariab now is 100% is Sudanese part. That one we need outside parts. We need technology. We alone we cannot do that project completely.
But the reserve is not yet confirmed. Ariab itself is
It's
Ariab. This is a
confirmed.
White
I
Nile.
studied there. It's ready. It is ready.
Ariab, I read about Ariab. This is a big.
I'm not talking about the old one. I'm talking about the
But anyhow,
the extension of Ariab.
anyhow, this is not the point. My point is that what are the most important or urgent things which can be useful, like infrastructure. Let us forget the
Yes.
Let us forget the Jadira plan. This is infrastructure. When I say infrastructure,
It's true.
power, railways,
Roads,
airways,
highways.
and line and highways. This is the infrastructure which are also prerequisites to the investors. Telecommunication, they want before they come to join any country. Can you elaborate on this in this issue of the infrastructure? Because the outcome, people will reap the benefit quickly. Companies through the boot system or any system, as you know, they can be done in about 5, 6, 7 years. Railways can be improved. Airways, just building and giving aircraft. And can you elaborate on the infrastructure as a priority?
This is a classic case of how actually countries develop. If you go back to the early days of the Industrial Revolution, when with the invention of the steam engine changed the face of the world, at least in the UK. The moment people realized they can move things from one village to another using waterways, then you started to have trading system, and then you started to have capitalism the way we know it, which Adam Smith described in his book in 1776. So in that regard, you see every now and then, if you look on social media, people say we have a lot of mangoes in Abu Dhabi. Yes, we have a lot of mangoes in Abu Dhabi, but we can't even get it to the local markets. Forget about exporting it. We have a lot of things in every part of the country. So infrastructure is not just a matter of need, it's a livelihood. We can trade locally. And by the way, local trade is also a big economic factor.
Yes.
It's not just we need to export things. We have a lot of markets for things that even you go, as we speak right now, I guarantee you, if you drive across the river and you take the eastern road down to Madani, you will see tons of what exactly? I'm trying to, one of those basal. I'm trying onions.
Onion.
It's a season and it's so cheap, but we have no ways of even exporting it or even actually drying it. And it's a season, you can buy it for very cheap, but because there's overproduction. This issue is always common. So I think if we really want to start somewhere, we have to be honest and say, with the existing infrastructure, we have roads, bridges, even our airport is not an airport, to be honest. This is not an international airport. I feel bad even calling it even an airport, forget that international. It's not even secure. With all of these things, you should not expect someone to come and drop $5 billion here. Why would they? Again, political stability, financial institutions, clear economic policies. Inflation is one out of control without actually being able to control inflation, making sure that investors will come. They know that the value of their investment is going to hold its value. They know means of getting their money in and out. Without all of these things, why would anyone come and take a risk? So we have not just one aspect to fix. We need to talk about infrastructure. We need to talk about the financial institutions. We need to talk about banking system reform. We need to talk about political stability. We need to talk about even the rule of law. I give you an example. No investor would go to a country when you cannot even use the legal system to get your money back. As you and I, we speak right now. You got to know me for about 3 weeks. If you trust me and I ask you for money and I got some money from you and I decided not to give you money, the only recourse you have is to ask my friends to sit down with me to get money out of me. If you go to court, you're going to spend 10 years looking for your money. So why would any investor come to a country when you know you can even get a legal transaction in a day? These are all issues. People sometimes think it's easy. But I do hope that we will find someone who's willing to invest in the future of the country, not just immediate. And that is what we are looking for. We need someone to say, okay, I'm going to put my money here, and maybe I'm not going to get money tomorrow, which is not usually the way businessmen think. When you invest, you want to get your money as fast as you can, right? So this is a challenge we have, and I think we can't do it by expecting foreigners to do it for us. I think if we go read the book of development in any country, usually you have to do your homework. We need to do our homework as Sudanese. We need to clean our house, and we need to start actually depending on the resources we have, and we have plenty, not just oil. If you think about the five main exports from Sudan, those 2.8 to 3.1 billion between the groundnuts, gum arabic, you have gold, and a little bit of oil, and then we have sesame. If we just focus on these things and we do it well, and we have a quality control system, and actually, and we get rid of all the corruption, the corrupt systems that we have between the customs and all of these, you would be surprised if you know that actually the groundnuts, Sudanese groundnuts, should not be exported because it cannot compete in the international market. Why? Because the cost of production is higher than what is available in the international market. We still export it for about 800, 700 billion, million, I mean.
Million.
The reason is simple. People export it because they don't bring the money back. They use different channels to get this. The dollar jumbriki is this customs dollar, which is different price. This is how exporters make money. They are not making money by competing in the international market. They are making money because of this twisted financial laws we have in the country. And I think without fixing those issues, we should not be expecting someone to come and save us.
Okay. Dr. Yasser Abed, now I think you have a lot of things to say.
It is very
Yes,
important.
what can
He
you tell us?
opened many doors on that. You know, a lot of things in that, especially even the trade itself, even the local trade and whatever. That is another part, another problem also. People avoid or try to just to dump their things or their goods and whatever, try to avoid the official not to pay customer taxes and whatever. That's one of the biggest affection in our economy, by the way. Most of the money should become the revenue. It goes to those traders and those whatever, and they are not compete with the rest of the world. If you go to this any products or any commodity in Sudan and want to export it outside, you can't compete. It's difficult to compete outside. Very difficult. You only speak about it's our
Because
quality.
of the price or because of the
Because of the pricing.
quality
Because
or
the
what?
price. You know, the quality is better. Because now
Organic, we have
the
our
world
organic.
doesn't know that the quality is as what, but they know how the price is. The price is very important at this time because
Why the price is high?
because of the expenses is too
Poor
much. The
infrastructure,
expense itself,
poor
yeah,
handling.
the expenses, the roads and infrastructure and whatever, the problem, the labor charge, the power, those all these elements of in the trade and on the production, it is costing so much, and that one is one of the biggest problems. We need at least a proper vision on that. We need a proper vision, not a proper program. So we have to form a program and a proper vision, a strategic vision on that in trade, in economy, in production, whatever. We have to do the costing of that. The costing starts from infrastructure, as Mr. Professor mentioned. The infrastructure is one of the problems. The roads is really very costly, and the power is also costly, and the rest of the things, you know, the labor charge is another problem. Everybody is just, most of the people, they don't even produce because of the labor. We have a big problem and a big challenge in our labor in Sudan.
But,
So
nobody...
nobody.
The important factor, you can answer this very quickly, because one of the encouraging factors for the exporters is the value. Now the value, the actual currency, its value is very low compared to, so this is something to encourage the exporter. The decision to float the currency of the Sudan, plus lifting subsidies, is it something good?
The subsidies is good. It's fact it is one of the biggest infection in the economy from a very long time. Now we have been away from that, and we have to build the economy now well with a proper vision also, as we know, the financial institution, financial policy, and the monetary policy also, and the trade policy should be at least proper and integrated policies. Our policies now is every institution is work with away of the others. We have to do integration policies and to put the vision very well. In the end of this year, we need to reach this point. We need to reach this point. We need to do that. But if you do it like that way, flotation today and tomorrow we come back from it, and tomorrow we do the custom
You lose the
whatever, and
whole
we
thing.
come back from it. That is a big problem in the economy. In fact, this is going to affect also our FDI, and this is one of the main in financial tools in the world now. One of the best and the good financial instead of the direct loan. So we have to look for that.
That's good.
We
Good.
go
Okay,
from that element.
what can, thank you, Dr. Yasser Abed. What can you say in the final wrap up now, in a minute or so?
I think the professor really laid out. We need a clear vision. We need specific, measurable goals about targets. We say we're going to be here, and next year we're going to be here. But back to the point about why we can't produce locally, I think you made a good economic argument that the value of Sudanese pound is low. That should be an encouragement for somebody to come and export. But you are forgetting something. The means of production, most of the stuff we use to produce are imported. We don't, if you think about pesticides, even agriculture, pesticides, most of the things we use as an input for production are imported. And when they are imported, they come with a high price of dollars. So what ends up being happening is the cost of production is really high.
Very high.
And that would not give any competitive advantage for Sudanese product to compete in the international market. And I think we need to do something about that in the future.
Okay, that is very good. We covered good part of this episode. So the conclusion that we have to keep the good relations with America, and we have to qualify, do enough from our side so that we can benefit and reap the outcome of this growing relation with America. Thank you, dear gentlemen, Professor Bakri Jack, Dr. Yasser Al-Abeid. Have enjoyed the 1 hour. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us in the last hour. Hope to see you next week in a different issue. Bye.